Hi, I'm Brian Van from SportbikeTrackGear.com, and today we're going to do a video showing you how we install a front tire and wheel assembly on my 2008 Yamaha R6. The idea here is just to give you enough information so you can decide whether or not this is a project you want to tackle on your motorcycle. Every bike is a little bit different, so this procedure will always vary. If you don't have the confidence to do this even after watching the video, take it into a licensed mechanic and they'll be happy to take care of it for you, right? It's really a pretty simple procedure. Follow the steps that we're going to show you. If you have questions, ask. There's a lot of great resources out there, from us to forums to friends that ride, that are going to be happy to help you with your project. This bike is a track-only bike, so there are some things about this that are going to be a little bit different than a street bike, but for the most part, this is going to be pretty close to exactly what you would do on a street bike. The tools I'm going to need for this motorcycle are going to be a 12mm socket, 3/8 ratchet, 22mm socket, 1/2" ratchet, and a 6mm Allen. There are also axle tools that you can use for this side to help you get the front axle torqued down, right? The procedure that I've been using over the years, I don't really use that tool, right? That's up to you whether or not you want to. I also don't use a torque wrench. I've got 20 years experience as a technician at a Cadillac dealer, so I'm really comfortable with torque. If you're not, get a torque wrench, look up the specs online so you get the job done right the first time. How I like to begin this is I go over to the left side of the motorcycle and I'm going to begin by breaking loose the axle nut on the R6. 22mm, I use the 1/2" ratchet. I'm going to go ahead and break that loose and remove the axle nut. Next up, I'm going to loosen up and remove the calipers. There's a couple of different schools of thought out here, right? That you shouldn't let your calipers hang. I would agree with that if it's going to be an extended period of time. This is only going to take a few minutes, and every time I do change my tires, it only does take a few minutes. So personally, I don't really have a lot of concern for letting the calipers hang. Steel braided brake lines are very, very strong. If you go to the Spiegler website, you can actually see an entire motorcycle being suspended from a forklift using a steel braided brake line. They're very strong. I'm going to go ahead and pull this caliper off now. It slides right off. This is a great opportunity to take a look at the braking system. The brake pads, the retaining clips, all these components that, especially if it's a street bike, that you're not going to have the opportunity to look at as frequently as you would with a race bike where you're constantly changing your tires. Take a look, see what kind of condition the pads are in. Is there a lot of dirt and grime and brake dust built up in here? This might also be a great opportunity for a brake service. That being said, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to let the caliper hang. Notice I kind of set it down gently, right? I'm going to break loose the 6mm Allen pinch bolt for the front axle. I'm going to go over to the other side. I'm going to break loose the pinch bolt here. Notice on this bike we're only using one pinch bolt. It's pretty common on a race bike to do that. Street bike, you're going to have both. This bike is also fully safety wired when everything is reinstalled, so that's really not of concern. Let's go ahead and break the caliper loose. Remove the caliper bolts. Just like we did on the other side, I'm going to take a moment and have a look at the braking system to make sure that there's nothing that needs to be done there. The pads on this motorcycle have been replaced fairly recently, and it hasn't been ridden a lot, so I know it's in good shape. But like I said, especially with your street bike, make sure you take this opportunity to have a good look. Now what I like to do is reach in with the 3/8 ratchet and push on the axle just a little bit so it protrudes from the other side. I'm going to reach in here, pull it out. Notice how easily that slid out. Especially with a street bike, and of course on a race bike as well, you need to make sure you keep that front axle lubricated. Not overly lubricated, but there needs to be enough lubrication on there so that it doesn't seize up inside the wheel. That is especially important on a street bike where the tire and rim are going to be on there typically for a long period of time. I've already got a wheel and tire prepared. Avon 3 Ultra Extreme. This is a track-only tire that Avon's released. It's brand new. We're going to need to switch over the front wheel spacers. Take a look at your wheel seals. Make sure they're in good condition. Look inside at the bearings. Check your brake rotors. This is a great opportunity, especially on your street bike, to see what kind of condition all those parts you don't have the opportunity to look at very closely are in. I like to roll the wheel in place. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to slide my foot underneath the tire, right? And I want to kind of be able to get the tire and rim inside the forks, supporting it with my right foot. I'm holding the rim with my right hand. Go ahead and grab the axle. Slide everything around until it lines up. Look over the other side. Push it through. Now, on this bike, what I'll do is I go ahead and I slide in my axle bolt. I am going to snug this down before I do anything else. Remember, once again, torque wrench is a personal choice. I don't feel the need for it, so I'm not going to use it. Notice I'm holding the axle here with my finger. I've got the axle good and snug. Remember, there are axle tools that are available. They slide right in here. You can put a wrench or a socket on it, so you're able to hold this firmer and get a nice solid torque. That's not as big of a concern on a race bike, because remember, these wheels and tires are off every weekend, sometimes multiple times during the same weekend. From here, I'm going to go ahead and snug up the pinch bolts on both sides. What I like to do with this is put a little bit of torque to each, like that, and then I'm going to come back and just double check it, okay? Next up is going to be the calipers. I'm going to go ahead and slide that over the rotor like so. I'm going to thread the bolts in. I'm going to get these things in so they're just finger tight. Just like that. Come over to the other side. A very key step with a front wheel change is going to be making sure you have pumped the front brakes up. You do not want to go on the test drive, or if it's a race bike, out there for your first laps on those new tires and not have any brakes. We've seen it happen 1,000,001 times at the track. It's a key step, street or track. The reason I'm not tightening these bolts right now is what I like to do is I leave both calipers just a little bit loose. I get the ratchet ready to go, and I spin the wheel, holding the brake. I'm going to go ahead and hold the brake. This aligns the calipers nice and square, because they do move around just a little bit on their locating pins. I'm going to snug both of the calipers up while holding the brake. And there you have it. I'm going to safety wire this bike before I ride it. It's already pre-drilled. If this is your street bike, go back over everything a couple of times. Make sure you've got it good and tight. It's really important, and it's a key safety component. Hopefully this short video today gives you an idea of what it takes to change the tire and wheel assembly on your motorcycle, so you can decide if that's a project you want to tackle on your bike. Remember, if you're not comfortable, take it into a licensed technician. They'll be glad to do it for you. I'm Brian Van, sportbiketrackgear.com.